Hey everyone, welcome back to Political X. For more knowledge and updates on UK, European and US politics, make sure you subscribe to this channel. This is PMQs on the 8th of December 2021. Here's Boris's speech.
That I understand and share the anger up and down the country at seeing number 10 staff seeming to make light of lockdown measures. And I can understand how infuriating it must be to think that the people who have been setting the rules have not been following the rules, Mr. Speaker.
So at this point, we've got Dominic Cummings breaking the rules, we've got Matt Hancock having an affair and breaking the rules, we now have Boris Johnson breaking the rules, and he keeps coming off as if it's a shocking thing that's just happened. It happened in his own home, and he didn't know a party was going on because no one invited him, or he's lying. Because
I was also furious to see that clip. And Mr. Speaker, I apologise unreservedly for the offence that it has caused up and down the country, and I apologise for the impression that it gives. But I repeat, Mr. Speaker, that I have been repeatedly assured since these allegations emerged that there was no party and that no COVID rules were broken, and that is what I have been repeatedly assured. But I have asked the Cabinet Secretary to establish all the facts and to report back as soon as possible.
An internal investigation, we know what that means.
The whole object of internal security inquiries is to find no evidence. Government security inquiries are only used for killing press stories. They're to enable the Prime Minister to stand up in the House and say, we've held a full inquiry and there is no evidence to substantiate these charges.
And, Mr. Speaker, it goes without saying that if those rules were broken, then there will be disciplinary action for all those involved.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I heard what the Prime Minister said at the beginning of this session, but frankly it raises more questions than answers. Last week, I asked the Prime Minister, was there a Christmas party in Downing Street for dozens of people on December the 18th? The Prime Minister, the government, spent the week telling the British public there was no party. All guidance was followed completely. Millions of people now think the Prime Minister was taking them for fools.
Or he held an investigation and didn't find anything. But it's funny because the police did.
And that they were lied to. They're right, aren't they?
Mr. Speaker, I think the right honourable gentleman probably missed what I said at the beginning, but I apologise. I apologise for the impression that has been given that staff in Downing Street take this less than seriously. I'm sickened myself and furious about that. But I repeat what I have said to him, that I've been repeatedly assured that the rules were not broken.
Order.
And
right, well, let's just do a little less, Prime Minister. It's important, Speaker.
Asked the Cabinet Secretary to investigate exactly what happened, and I repeat that there will be consequences for those involved if those rules were broken, Mr. Speaker.
Keir Starmer.
An internal investigation into what happened. The situation is as clear as day. I thought last week was... Mr. Speaker, I thought last week was bad enough. Surely the Prime Minister isn't now going to start pretending that the first he knew about this was last night. Surely.
I don't know if you caught that, but someone actually shouted or whispered, it's his own house.
We've all watched the video of the Prime Minister's staff, including his personal spokesperson.
Who you can see in my video titled Christmas with the Conservatives or Downing Street Christmas Party, denies any knowledge of attending any party.
They knew there was a party, they knew it was against the rules, they knew they couldn't admit it, and they thought it was funny. It's obvious what happened. Anton Decker ahead of the Prime Minister on this. The Prime Minister has been caught red-handed. Why doesn't he end the investigation right now by just admitting it?
Because, Mr. Speaker, I've been repeatedly assured that no rules were broken. Mr. Speaker, and they may not. I understand public anxiety about this, and I understand public indignation. But there is a risk of doing a grave injustice to people who are frankly obeying the rules, Mr. Speaker. That is why the Cabinet Secretary will be conducting an investigation, and that's why there will be the requisite disciplinary action if necessary.
Keir Starmer.
Unbelievable. This pretence that further information's come to light. Give me a break. He's still taking the public for fools. On the day of the Downing Street party, Trisha Greenhall's mum phoned her. She was breathless and feverish. You might want to listen. Exactly. Trisha followed the rules and didn't visit her mum. Listening? 4 days later, on the day the Prime Minister's staff laughed about covering up the party, Trisha's mum was admitted to hospital. Trisha followed the rules and didn't visit. Trisha's mum spent Christmas Day in hospital. Trisha followed the rules and didn't visit. 2 days later, Trisha's mum died. What Trisha wants to know is this: why did the Prime Minister expect her to accept that the rules allowed a Downing Street party but didn't allow her to visit her dying mother?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the first thing to say is that, in common with everybody in this House, I extend my sympathies to the family of Trisha, and of course I understand to Trisha and our family, and I understand the pain of everybody who has suffered throughout this pandemic. And I know that the implication that he is trying to draw, that the case that we're now investigating somehow should undermine public confidence in the measures that we're taking. I think that's the point that he's trying to make. But I may say to him, Mr. Speaker, I think it is a great mistake to try to play politics with this issue. And I think that is what he is doing. I think that is what he is doing. And the public, Mr. Speaker, will not like to see, I don't think the public do want to see confidence in their measures, in these measures undermined. And we are taking, I think they can see the difference, Mr. Speaker. We are taking the steps necessary to protect the public. Above all, Mr. Speaker.
Remember Operation Moonshot? Protecting us, really. Is that what... But it didn't end there. This is what happened after 2 weeks of the track and trace system.
We will have a test track and trace operation that will be world-beating.
Now listen to this.
The coronavirus contact tracing app for England and Wales has only sent one alert about an outbreak of coronavirus since it was launched 2 weeks ago.
Mr. Speaker, by rolling out the vaccinations, and rather than focusing on the events of a year ago, Mr. Speaker, that is what we are focusing on, and that is what I think the public will understand.
Keir Starmer.
But it's not just the events of a year ago, is it? We are facing a new variant. Yep. We may well be in Plan B this afternoon. Even the Prime Minister, must understand the damage he's done to his credibility in enforcing the rules now and in the future. Exactly. Trisha made an enormous personal sacrifice to do the right thing, to follow the rules and help defeat the virus. That's what she was asked to do. Most people were just like Trisha last Christmas. Yeah. No one was dreaming of a Zoom Christmas, turkey dinners for one, gifts exchanged at service stations. But the virus was out of control. 489 people died of COVID on the day of the Downing Street party. So the British people put the health of others above themselves and followed the rules.
I went home. Hold on.
Isn't the Prime Minister ashamed that his Downing Street couldn't do the same?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've said what I've said about the events on December the 18th, they will be properly investigated. And, Mr. Speaker, I will place a copy of the Cabinet Secretary's report in the library of the House of Commons. But what people should not do is lose focus on what we are trying to do now. Rather than, of course, we will deal with the events of what may or may not have taken place on the 18th of December last year, Mr. Speaker. But what I think we need to focus on today is what we're doing to roll out the vaccinations across this country and what we're doing to protect the public. And he is indeed right, Mr. Speaker, that we now have in the Omicron variant, a variant that is spreading much faster, Mr. Speaker, than any variant that we've seen before. And that is what we need, with great respect to the right honourable gentleman, to focus on. And that is why I ask everybody to go and get their booster jab as soon as they're called forward.
Starmer.
The Prime Minister apparently wants us to focus on what's happening today. There were no government spokespersons on the media this morning. I see the Health Secretary has made it to the chamber. And that's the point, Mr. Speaker. This virus isn't defeated. We're going to face other tests where the British people may be asked by their leaders to make further sacrifices for the greater good. Her Majesty the Queen sat alone when she marked the passing of the man she'd been married to for 73 years. Leadership, sacrifice, that's what gives leaders the moral authority to lead. Does the Prime Minister think he has the moral authority to lead and to ask the British people to stick to the rules?
Not only that, Mr. Speaker, but the Labour Party and the Labour leader in particular have played politics, Mr. Speaker, throughout this pandemic.
I've got to hear what the Prime Minister is saying, because if I don't know when something is said, and I must hear the Prime Minister. Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and if I may say so, throughout this pandemic, the Leader of the Opposition in particular has done nothing but play politics to try to muddy the waters.
Muddy the water.
After hour
literally pumping raw sewage into our seas and our rivers
one of many similar
and our
instances
water.
that have appalled.
To confuse the public.
And there he goes again, confuse the public. He did it himself, using 3-word sentences to try and get things stuck into our heads. Except they didn't make any sense.
Hand, space, space, hands. Space, space.
And when he did go into full sentences, it was even worse. Stitch in time saves 9. Or this about. And if you think in any way I'm being biased, this is what happened when we went back into lockdown. They set up regional and national rules.
Half of England now face tighter restrictions, including 9 million people in the capital.
People in London, York, Essex and other areas are banned from mixing indoors.
Just as we simplified our national rules with the rule of 6, we will now simplify and standardise our local rules.
And this is what the public thought.
The country is so confused.
I think it's been confusing from day one, really.
I'm sick of it. It's confusion.
You don't understand?
No idea.
Nobody knows.
There are too many different orders coming in, one after another, and we never know where we stand from one day to the next.
He's fucked it.
Just get a load of what he says here. It's just on a scale, it really is, of insanity.
And to cause needless confusion about the guidance. The public, Mr. Speaker, have not been so confused and they have not been fooled. We've talked for a long time, or I have, about the distant bugle of the scientific cavalry coming over the brow of the hill. I can tell you that tonight that toot of that bugle is louder.
Just what is he talking about? He has caused so much damage.
And they have got on with implementing the guidance, and they have got on in particular, Mr. Speaker, with showing great commitment to the health of this country by going forward to get vaccinated.
Order. Prime Minister. Mr. Streeting, we've had this the week before. I'm not having this every week. No, if you want to be on the front bench, behave like you're meant to be there. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, at every stage, the Labour leadership and the Labour right honourable gentlemen have tried to muddy the waters and to play politics, whereas the people of this country have not been fooled. And in particular, they have come forward to get vaccinated faster than any other country in Europe. We've now done 20 million boosters, Mr. Speaker. That is the single best thing that we can do, and I encourage everybody to keep going and get their booster jab.
Starmer.
That's so desperate, and even his own side can see it. Last week, the Prime Minister told us there was no party. Now he thinks there's something to investigate. The Justice Secretary thinks that the police don't investigate crimes from a year ago.
To any circumstances, events in Downing Street that the rules were complied with, and the police have been very clear. They'll look at any letter, but they don't normally look back and investigate things that have taken place a year ago. I don't think. I don't think. Well, in the absence of some form of
retrospective to one side. That's a straight.
But it wasn't just Dominic Raab that had said that. Rees-Mogg was secretly filmed saying the exact same thing, but also laughing about this festive party.
I see we're all here obeying regulations, aren't we? I mean, this party is not going to be investigated by the police in a year's time. You are all very carefully socially distanced.
Well, I ran the Crown Prosecution Service, and I can tell him that is total nonsense. Mr. Speaker, at Westminster Magistrates Court, right now, the CPS are prosecuting over a dozen breaches of COVID restrictions last December, including those, Prime Minister, who hosted parties. They're doing their job, enforcing the law set in Downing Street. Will the Prime Minister support the police and support the CPS by handing over everything the government knows about parties in Downing Street to the Metropolitan Police?
Prime Minister.
Of course we will do that, and we will get on with the investigation by the Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Speaker, he continually wants to play politics with this issue. We want to get on with our job of protecting this country during the pandemic, and Mr. Speaker, delivering the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, fighting the drugs gangs, Mr. Speaker, when the party opposite wants to decriminalise Class A drugs, Mr. Speaker.
Drugs that the Prime Minister he himself has taken, which he's admitted on TV, and also it appears that large amounts of cocaine are being taken throughout Westminster, including drugs of cocaine being found near to the Prime Minister's office and Priti Patel's.
And backing our borders bill, Mr. Speaker. They have an opportunity to focus on that tonight. Why not back our borders bill, Mr. Speaker, and have life sentences for people traffickers? That's what the Leader of the Opposition should be doing. That's what I urge you, rather than playing politics.
How does Boris not realise they're politicians? Here's Ian Blackford.
I now call the Leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are standing on the cliff edge of yet another challenging moment in this pandemic. Omicron cases are rising at a rapid rate over the coming weeks. Tough decisions will again have to be made to save lives and protect our NHS. Mr. Speaker, trust in leadership is a matter of life and death. Downing Street willfully broke the rules and mocked the sacrifices we have all made, shattering the public's trust. The Prime Minister is responsible for losing the trust of the people. He can no longer lead on the most pressing issue facing these islands. The Prime Minister has a duty, the only right and moral choice left to him. It is for his resignation. When can we expect it?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the party opposite, and indeed the other party opposite, are going to continue to play politics. I am going to get on with the job.
Ian Blackford.
No dignity from a Prime Minister that quite simply just doesn't get it. Mr. Speaker, people across these islands have followed the rules, even when it meant missing friends and family, missing births, missing funerals, missing the chance to be beside a loved one in their dying moments. People have sacrificed, at times to the point of breaking, while the UK government has laughed in our faces. It is clear that this Prime Minister has lost the support of the public and now even his own benches. This is not a grin and bear it moment. This is a moment of moral reckoning. Every member of the Conservative benches must now decide, is this the man to lead these islands when lives are at stake? It is clear that this Prime Minister intends to desperately cling on to power, and I have nothing left to say to a man whose answers we simply can't trust. So, Mr. Speaker,
Order. I will hear this question, whether the front bench like it or not. Can I just say, I'm expecting better behaviour. The public out there are questioning this Parliament. Don't answer that question. Ian Blackford.
questioning this Parliament and questioning this Prime Minister that we cannot trust. It is clear that the Prime Minister desperately is clinging on to power, and I've got nothing left to say to a man who we simply cannot trust. So, Mr. Speaker, it is time for members in this House to act. If he doesn't resign, then he must be removed.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the right honourable gentleman for his vote of support and thanks, vote of confidence. But I can tell him that I am going to get on with the job, and I believe that that is what is the right thing to do. And I think it is very, very sad that when the public need to hear clarity from their officials and from politicians, the parties opposite are trying to muddy the waters about events or non-events of a year ago, Mr. Speaker, and that is what they are doing today.
We know.
That's probably the first time I've ever heard someone tell the Prime Minister to resign in PMQs. Always a first for everything, isn't there? Hope you enjoyed this. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that PMQs. Do you think Starmer actually is starting to step up? Big thank you to my patrons. I appreciate this might be tough, but if you'd like to, please consider becoming a patron. It costs the equivalent of a coffee a month. I hope you enjoyed my political observations this week. If you'd like to support me, please share the video with others and post about it on social media. If you're keen for more, subscribe, comment, like, and hit that notification button. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on Political X.